Good morning everyone. This guide is also written more detailed on Mobility website. Check out the link in the description to see my other team rotation guide. Miasma Fiend is the newly arrived PA boss, and she already starts with 100 million HP right off the bat. In addition to that, she has a 30-second invincibility phase and only 125% stun multiplier. So it is fair to say this is the hardest boss that we face in that the assault yet. I believe currently it's not possible to get a kill on the boss without limited mindscapes. Either M1 Astra, Vivian, or Yuzuha would be the minimum possible requirement for it. But we will still give it our best at facing her. So our objective today is to figure out how we could get the highest score possible without limited mindscape. To understand it more clearly, we'll use the other two previous 100 million HP boss as an example. Both of these boss is still possible to be killed by Miyabi even with their high HP. The reason for that is in their major weakness. They are freezable boss. Plus, Bringer gives huge combat attack buff and Butcher attribute anomaly damage buff. Technically, Bringer also has about 30-second invincibility phase, depending how many hands he summoned, but he is still currently killable because of this weakness that is being exploited by Miyabi. And Butcher, even though gives the same combat buff just like the Fiend, there is anomaly damage buff, he doesn't have invincibility phase, so getting 3 or 4 stun window becomes a possibility, thus increasing the possible score. So now we go back to the Fiend, which we already see gives so little gap in the damage optimization. She's obviously designed to be up against anomaly agent. The best performing DPS currently against the Fiend would be Jane and Vivian, just due to the weakness matchup. Other anomaly agent like Miyabi and Yanagi doesn't feel good in my opinion, because weirdly, their neutral anomaly build-up seems to be so slow. And I fail to see any weaknesses that can be exploited on the Fiend, or there haven't been any agent that has the capability to do so, which makes me decide our best bet at getting a high score at her is to maximize the anomaly damage output, because the Fiend takes 48% bonus anomaly damage, and the best agent for this situation is Vivian, given she can deal additional anomaly damage through her Bloom, in addition to attribute anomaly and the disorders. Yuzuha would be her best support in this situation as she buffs the anomaly damage some more, and for the third slot should be an anomaly agent for the disorder partner. This could be Jane. In this case, this is a double DPS team setup where Yuzuha is buffing both Jane and Vivian damage output, but in this matchup, I actually think Piper is a bit better for this third slot. Piper's role here is not as a pure DPS like Jane. She is played more as an enabler for Vivian Bloom and Ether Disorders, as Piper's low energy requirement for using her EX is really useful to proc Vivian Bloom effectively. Other agents that can also do this is Bernice and Astra, but Piper wins because of the physical weakness. And Piper also has a bit of buffing capability for the team. Piper is on Fang Metal 4-piece, and Vivian is on Phaeton 4-piece. They are both on AP build and AMD 6, standard for anomaly agents. Because Yuzuha also built considerable amount of physical anomaly meter with her EX and ultimate, it's best if you can get her AP this 4, but it might require a lot of attack substat to get 3000 attack with it, so attack this 4 would also be fine. Yuzuha is on Protopunk 4-piece. You can also use Twinjas, but in this matchup, I think Protopunk has the better uptime, as the Fiend gives a lot of yellow green for defensive assist, but it wouldn't have 100% uptime. And I think Astral is not that good on Yuzuha in this team. Through my testing, I find that Withing Gemini on Piper is her best vengeance here. It's better than Fusion Compiler, her own signature, and even Time Waver. I believe it's because Whipping Gemini gives the highest physical bloom damage for Vivian damage output due to the huge AP. Yuzuha's signature gives a lot of damage increase here compared to Whipping Cradle, as the AP boost matters a lot for Vivian. And Vivian's signature here is really needed. Without the 40% build-up buff from her signature, the rotation becomes really hard to do. Without it, you'll need to compensate the build-up buff with something else like M2 Yuzuha for example. Important note on the current buff. Artful is a really strong buff for Disorder Team Comp. To make full use of it, we would need to proc attribute anomaly every 10 seconds. This is given if we are aiming for Disorder Chains. And this also changes a lot on the agent's build. Because of the physical damage, Piper would be a bit better using attack this 5, but still choose the one with the more AP substats. And because of the huge death threat, you should not use Pen this 5 when using this buff, as they are clashes with each other. So the rotation is the same like any other Disorder team. We want to proc physical and Ether Disorder back to back. In addition to that, you'd want as many and all of Vivian Bloom to be used up, which means no overflow Bloom if possible. You would also want to keep an eye on this buff's uptime. So let's break down the rotation. We start with the setup, Piper full basic for accumulating energy, swap cancel to Vivian full basic to activate her feathers, and to Yuzuha basics also for energy. And we go back to Piper, waiting for defensive assist with Yuzuha. Swapping with defensive assist is important to get Protopunk buff uptime as high as possible. All of Fiend attack pattern has yellow glint, except this one move where she starts chanting. So the best scenario is for her to not use this move too much. Yuzuha defensive assist, which then follow with her EX, activating her buffs. Yuzuha Aftershock attribute will be assigned to Vivian Ether, as Piper doesn't really need it. And now we can go all out, Vivian EX to proc Corruption and to Piper. Notice that here Vivian Feather is full. The damage optimization that we aim here is to make sure all of it is used up for a bloom damage. We do that by using Piper EX. Piper EX procs a bloom twice, when she is glowing in her spin and the finishing slam. The most energy efficient way to use her EX is by starting it with basic 3 and then EX, compared to immediately EX hold. Here we proc a bloom with her spin EX, but then we cancel the EX spin with a dash and start another spin. The assault consumes a second feather, and then the spin, followed by the slam, will consume additionally 2 feathers. The Ether Anomaly meter is now ready to be proc by Vivian. Using Vivian defensive assist to proc Corruption is the best case scenario, as it doesn't consume energy. If the Fiend doesn't give yellow glint, we could use her full basic for it, but it has lower momentum. And now we go back to Piper. Vivian now has 3 feather after her defensive assist. All of it will be consumed by this spin, assault, and then slam. Before we go to Vivian ultimate, Piper full basic for energy and anomaly meter, and if Vivian feather is 0 during her ultimate, that means your bloom damage output is good. This means there are no overflow feather during Vivian ultimate, as Vivian ultimate generates 5 feathers. And then we go back again to Piper and still use the dash cancel to reset her EX to optimize the bloom count in the fight, and keep getting the defensive assist if possible for Protopunk buff. In the stun window, our aim is to proc 4 Disorder inside it, even though the stun multiplier is not that high, so the difference between perfect stun rotation and an OK one is not that much. The first stun window is not that good. We'll see the second stun window for a better example. The flow here, Piper will proc assault and spin. You don't need to spin too long here, we need to conserve her energy. Don't wait for the slam to hit the boss, instead trigger the chain with Yuzuha. If the bloom count is good, then Vivian chain will proc Corruption. We cancel the chain, back to Piper EX to assault, and then trigger chain with Yuzuha again. Then Vivian chain will proc Corruption again, and then back to Piper EX. And you see here, as Piper slam hits the boss, Vivian final feather is consumed, and 5 more is generated with her ultimate. No fire wasted, and all is converted to damage, and the rotation after the stun will follows just like previously. In addition, here we use Piper ultimate for assault. I usually don't recommend using her ultimate because of the long animation. The only good use case of it is when Piper don't have energy, but there's still a lot of the meter to fill, like here after the Miasma break for example. Now the interesting part that I want to point out is at the Miasma State. You see the Yuzuha here is parrying the Fiend attack with her hold basic. This is 1 to maximize her sugar points, and 2, the parry is actually reducing the Miasma shield by a bit. This doesn't make a huge difference in the long run, but by doing this, we could end the Miasma State way faster than by just dodging. An important note on the Miasma State, use up both Vivian and Yuzuha EX energy before the Miasma State ends, because after the Fiend is purified, we will get energy refund, and if their energy is max, the overflow energy will be wasted. Certainly not good, especially for Vivian as she will really need it. And I think that's highlighted the important part of the runs. This might be a hot take, but I think Piper here is better than M0 Jade because of how well Piper synergizes with Vivian specifically, as Jane doesn't have the capability to maximize Vivian or Bloom output unless you switch Yuzuha to Astra for the support slot, which I believe a better option for this matchup. This new boss actually makes me glad that now I have reason to play Piper again. Well, until Alice come out next week I guess. We'll see how Alice will compare with this team then, so stay tuned for that. I hope this video helps you, and see you next time.